Hello, everybody. This is me, Amin,
And this Alex.
and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About. And in this episode, we got a question from one of our long-standing viewers, and he asked this question: Whether is Grab a monopoly in Malaysia? So in this episode of Let's Talk About, we're answering that question: whether Grab is a monopoly, and is the government doing anything to stop it, and whether Grab has any legit competitors in Malaysia. I think the short answer to this question is no. I don't think Grab is a monopoly because, if I'm not mistaken, there is no law or legislation that says that nobody can come out with a ride-hailing app. If Alex and I had the time, we probably can come up with a ride-hailing app and compete head-on with Grab. But do we have the funds? Do we have the resources? We might not, but that's part of being competitive, right? I mean, you try to find the resources, the support, and the funds to compete with a bigger company. So in this case, I do agree. Grab is prominent, and Grab is huge, and Grab is everywhere. And that is not a result of Grab enjoying a monopoly in the market. I think it is a result of Grab moving super fast and adapting and innovating from the start. Because I think the first player to come into Malaysia with regards to ride-hailing was Uber, right, Alex?
Yeah, it was Uber. They started first. And I think eventually, only later on, there's My Taxi, which was the former name of Grab. So that time, they're completely two different markets. So Uber is more like the e-hailing that we know of today. But back then was more posh. Remember, they were using more premium cars. The idea about Uber is that, I can just use the phone, press a button, I can get like a clean and reliable ride to pick me up from point A to point B. Whereas My Taxi back then was basically how to make taxis easier for everyone to take. Because back then, you want to call a taxi, you need to call a number, tell them where you want to go, hang up, and for maybe 5 minutes later, you get a call back, say, okay, go taxi, or what's the number? Or,
Taxi
sorry,
on
no
the
taxi.
way.
Taxi on the way, no taxi put down. So that's how it all started back then. So eventually, I think Grab get into the e-hailing scene by offering the e-hailing service. So that's how it became Grab Car.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about like whether it's a monopoly or not, and that's a really good example, right? So Uber was the first mover into the market. They first came into Malaysia, and it was really novel. I can't remember when exactly. I think it was 7 years ago.
I think 2016 or somewhere around that time. Yeah.
Okay, so when they came in, it's like, oh wow, this is a very very novel concept. Would people even want to allow other people to ride their cars, right? I think they tested the market. They were bold to come in and they tested the market and they got a lot of traction. I think that also gave birth to My Taxi, but because of the perception of the society back then, right? If I want to take a ride, I take a taxi, not take somebody's car. So Grab focus on that segment of the market. It's like, okay, let's commoditize taxi and make it more accessible, like how you mentioned. And then eventually, I think they got wind of like, hey, people don't want to ride taxi because, no offense to taxi drivers here who are listening, but, the taxi has a perception of not being safe, not being clean, being picky, not being reliable, and things like that. And people really enjoy the Uber experience where you get a fresh ride, friendly driver, and you just walk out of you know exactly when you're going to get your car.
Yeah, and then and I think that time one thing that's great was that you can rate your driver. So that's a completely new experience. So that shows that, I can actually rate my driver experience, and hopefully that will improve the service. Oh yeah, just a slight correction. Uber was introduced in Malaysia in 2013.
Yeah, 10 years ago. So it's and that rating system gave you like a security, right? Gave you like, okay, and it's kind of like a control. So people who I think rated 4.3 and below will get like a message from Uber that, hey, you need to improve your thing or you'll be suspended and stuff like that. So that model kind of worked, and it addresses like a huge need in the country. So for me, like, Alex and I, we have cars, so we didn't really think about like needing a taxi. Because here we'll just drive everywhere because taxis are so difficult to get, and it's just more convenient to just drive somewhere, right? So the advent of Uber and Grab allowed us to rethink the way we drive. And for the people who don't have cars, it gave them a huge boost in terms of mobility. Suddenly, I don't have to wait for unreliable taxi. I don't have to ride smelly taxis. I can just grab a car or grab an Uber ride anytime I want, and it's available. And the surge pricing and all that makes it it kind of like gamifies a lot of things, right?
Yeah, and I think also back then it was quite interesting because it sort of changed the way how people view car ownership. Because some people, when they do the math, like if I'm going to buy a car, I need to spend X amount of money on installment, X amount of money on parking, fuel, maintenance, and for the same amount I spend, or maybe even less than that, I can actually just rely fully on Uber and Grab to get to where I want to go, and overall it's much cheaper.
Yeah, I think we did like a comparison on whether like a car ownership is and versus Grab, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's worthwhile or not. And I think we decided. I think we concluded that if you are a single person or don't have kids, I think, and you live predominantly around KL, not having a car is convenient, and Grab allowed you to do that. So the question is, I think to say that whether Grab is a monopoly or not, I think it's wrong. I think it's just a perception thing because they're so dominant. Because Uber came in first, and then Grab tried to compete, and then Grab kind of like dominated. It's not because through legislation or through favors or whatever. It's through grit. I have to give it to Grab. They really tried hard to compete, and if you recall back then, there was like a lot of resistance, especially from the government and from the taxi operators, for Grab and Uber. And there was a lot of political things going on, a lot of lobbying going on, and Grab played the lobby game as well, and they benefited. And then you come into the market where, okay, what about Uber? What about Grab buying out Uber, or Uber being kicked out because Grab bought them? I think I need to clarify here. I don't think Uber was at a loss when they moved out from the Malaysia market, or Grab Grab benefited like a big deal. I think it's a matter of business sense. So if Malaysia is probably the third smallest country in this region. So we have Singapore, Brunei, and us. And then after all that, you have Indonesia, which is massive. I think it's one of the most populous countries in the world. And then you have Cambodia, you have Myanmar, you have Thailand, you have Vietnam. These are all huge countries. The market potential is huge. And what happened was Uber came in and said, you know what, I think there's not enough of an incentive for us to establish a base in Malaysia. But, there is potential here. And I think Grab is already doing it so well. Let's not compete. Let's try to be smart and let's partner. And that's like normal business sense, right?
Yeah, it benefits mutually for both sides. We all know that both of them are like burning loads of money. So back then when the competition was so high, right, like rice are so cheap that you can get like 3 ringgit rice, 5 ringgit rice, because those are mostly subsidized by themselves, by these companies burning cash. They're just burning money just to get the numbers. That's about it. They're not making money. They're at a loss.
Yeah, I remember getting like super premium cars, man. I remember getting like a XJ
Jaguar,
for like a normal ride, and it gave you like that sense of like you're being chauffeured around. I guess that's kind of like a acquisition model, and I think Grab played on that as well. So the I wouldn't say the merger, the collaboration between Grab and Uber back then, did that contribute to Grab being a dominant player? I don't know. It's hard to say because there are already a number of ride-hailing companies in the country already, right? So since My Taxi became Grab, there is My Car, there is Mula, there's Dexy, and there's also now Air Asia Ride, right? So there is again no rule to say that hey, nobody. If you want to open a e-hailing company, you need to get like a special license, and you need to have like a X amount of capital. Anybody can just develop an app and start doing it.
Yeah. So there's no stopping them.
Yeah. So the answer to that question, no, I don't think Grab is a monopoly. If you guys think it is, and I missed some facts or we missed some facts, you can just put them in the comment section below, and we can discuss about it.
Yeah. So it's a matter of like, is dominance equivalent to monopoly? So that's a tricky thing, because I would say that, like you mentioned, right, like there's no stopping from other players from coming to Malaysia. There's no stopping of any one of us starting a new e-hailing service. But it is true that Grab is the most dominant player, and the other players that we mentioned earlier, they're just so far behind in terms of user experience, in terms of network, in terms of availability.
I guess, and that's a very good point. Is dominance monopoly? No, it's not. I mean, it could be a byproduct of a monopoly, but there are a lot of other things that equate to monopoly, and you need to go into detail, right? Where if there is no level playing field, I mean, for example, if you and I try to come up with Soy Chin Chow right today, Grab comes in and step in and makes it difficult, and lobbies, lawmakers to say, hey, we can't. If you wanna develop an e-hailing app, you have to do all these things. Then there is like a grey line there because then it makes it difficult for us to become competitors. But you can see there's Dexy, there's AirAsia Ride today, right? So AirAsia Ride came out, and I think AirAsia Ride is, for the lack of really truly reliable competitors out there, I think AirAsia has the capacity, capability, has the funds, has the people, has the CEO to really stick it to Grab. And it's great that AirAsia is looking into this, but it's also worth noting that AirAsia is not the only one that has the capability, to compete with Grab. It's just a matter of desire. So if you look at the delivery companies, right? So there's Food Panda, there's Lala Move.
Yeah.
There's what do you mention just now?
Beepit.
There's Beepit. There's Bungkusit. There's a lot of these players, and if you look at Grab right now, they are trying to go into that space, right? They're trying to do deliveries more. In fact, my interface with Grab is more on food deliveries rather than rides. So I think that's also another point to say that it's not a monopoly. And these companies that are doing deliveries, they just don't have the desire right now to go into the e-hailing market.
Yeah, I think the term to mention all this is called the super app. So apparently, like one app to do so many things. So I think if you look at the landscape, apart from Grab, I think the closest competitor would be AirAsia. So so these two dominant players, not one.
Yeah, and AirAsia has like a distinct advantage, right? So they have brick and mortar stores. They have the what's it called? The restaurants.
Santap.
Is it called Santap?
Yeah, Santap. Yes.
Okay.
Santan. I think Santan.
Oh yes. Okay, Santan. So they have those restaurants, and then they have their fleet of planes, and it just makes sense, right? So now they're also doing deliveries, Asia Food or something like that.
Yeah, Asia Food. They have also groceries. They also have logistics companies, since they have the planes and the cars and the network.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense.
Yeah, and if you ask me, if AirAsia can pull all these strings together, they are an even bigger threat to a monopoly than Grab, because Grab does not own a fleet. Yep. They don't own planes, they don't own assets. I mean they do, but so it's not at the scale of AirAsia, because AirAsia has hotels too.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a more bigger and complete ecosystem there. So I guess, okay, we've already kind of established and put out the facts that Grab is not like a monopoly. Now is whether AirAsia versus Grab, Grab is AirAsia is a legit competitor to Grab. So what do you think?
As in the offerings, like what can they do? Because Asia they have the planes, they have the hotels, they have the courier, they have the network service, so they can actually do more end-to-end stuff. Like I want to deliver something from here to like KK. Grab can do that. Yeah, so they have end-to-end. So they have planes, they have the courier service as well. I think they call it teleport.
Or you can argue that the points would have more value because you can convert them, instead of drinks and goodies, you can convert them to travel.
Yeah, that's actually what Grab's doing. Like the Asia points you earn from flights, you can use it for food, and coming soon you can use it for rides as well.
Yeah. So, and people who are coming into the country when tourism opens up, automatically there's a gateway. It's a funnel, right? So after I fly in, so there's a disconnect. Disconnect here is when I land in Malaysia, I move to
next?
Grab. I go to Grab for traveling in Malaysia. But with AirAsia, right, I land in Malaysia, I take AirAsia, right, it's done.
I would say that Asia has like an interesting, I think probably better position than Grab, because like you mentioned, right, they own planes, they own hotels, they also have a fleet of delivery guys who can do courier service under teleport, as well as now you have the food delivery and also e-hailing. So they can actually provide like an end-to-end solution. Like for example, once tourism opens up in Malaysia, when our pandemic situation is slightly better, and imagine if a tourist comes to Malaysia, normally you need to book your flight and a hotel. So when you arrive in KLAA, normally you need to take a taxi or a Grab to your hotel. So that's like a missing link. So Asia can capitalize on that. So imagine if you book your holiday, right? After you book a ticket, you can straight away book your Asia ride. And that covers the whole trip all the way until your hotel stay at, let's say, Tune Hotels or whatever properties they have at the moment. And that is super cohesive. So it's like they cover all bases. And I think that's a threat to Grab because, as you all know, right, e-hailing drivers, if you ask any one of them, they will love airport trips. And this will actually maximize the airport trips. In fact, when Asia Ride was announced, they actually highlight the importance of using data analytics. So they said that based on the information they have, like I know how many people are landing in KIA, they can actually match drivers immediately based on arrival times of a certain passenger. So that will minimize the waiting time for drivers so that we can maximize the utilization and potentially increase the income. So that's one advantage that Asia has that Grab does not have.
Yeah, I think those are really very good points, and it's true, right? So, and it's not just for Malaysia. So AirAsia travels all over the world. Let's say if AirAsia wants to dominate the Asian market, having that disconnect solves a huge problem. So, and it's all in one app, right? So I just need to install the AirAsia app. I can travel to Indonesia, for example, and already I have a AirAsia ride waiting for me there.
Yep.
Without having to install like a Grab or whatever, right? So it's huge. And I'm happy. I'm happy that Tony Fernandez is doing this. I'm happy that he's pivoting and he's able to innovate from like a airline company to now developing a super app. But I think the biggest problem and the biggest hurdle AirAsia will have is breaking people's habit. So I don't know. Maybe I'm an old guy. I stick to the app that I'm familiar with. So
Same
for
here.
food deliveries, for example, and rides, right? Grab was my dominant choice back then. I remember people in the office, I think you, Anip and Najib, they were say, hey, you should try Foodpanda. It's cheaper and all that. I said, no need lah. I don't want to install so many apps. And it was a major friction point for me. It was a major friction point to start installing all this app. The only reason why I started trying Foodpanda and dedicated food delivery apps like McDonald's one is there are tangible benefits. So for example, when I tried Foodpanda, I like that there are a lot of local listings in my area. So the reason why I tried Foodpanda over Grab was because Grab had like really limited selection of food where I stayed. And when I opened up Foodpanda, I was like, all these small businesses are available for me to order, and that's great. For the McDonald's food delivery app, I used it because after testing and all that, I found out that McDonald's delivery app delivers faster than Grab and Foodpanda, and they also made sure that if they agree to deliver, they will deliver your food no matter how long it takes and whether the store is closing or not. So I remember ordering something almost at closing time. They took my order and the shop closed already, but they called me up and said, hey, hello, we got your order and we're delivering, so don't worry. So those are the things that make me shift, right? That eliminated my friction point. So I don't know about if you guys are younger viewers here, you can let me know whether there is an apprehension to download new applications to try. But I'll be honest, I haven't downloaded AirAsia Ride. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think would make people want to download AirAsia Ride?
Yeah, like what you pointed out is like also about familiarity. Like personally, I use Grab for almost everything because apart from ordering food, I also use it for self pickups as well. Because if I go to a particular location, instead of going up to the counter and touch the grimy menus, I rather select the order from the app and just pick it up from the store. And also I use a Grab e-wallet most of the time because you can earn a lot of points from there, and you can use the points for almost anything. You can use it to discount your next purchase or to claim vouchers for your food. My issue with the AirAsia app is that it isn't as polished as say Grab, because it feels like it's still primarily an airline app, and there are other features that are like tagged onto it. Like for example, the AirAsia Ride app, it feels disconnected. Like for example, Asia has this thing called Big Pay, right? So Big Pay is their own prepaid card with Mastercard and PayWave and all that, but it doesn't seem to be integrated to the Asia Ride app. So when I install Asia Ride, when I set up Asia Ride, and then when I try to put in my payment card details, it doesn't recognize my Big Pay card. That should be done automatically because that I'm a Big Pay user. But instead, I need to key in my Big Pay card information into the app. So it feels like there's disconnect there. And of course, it's functional, it works, but it doesn't feel as fluid as, say, Grab. Same goes to Asia Food, because I tried that before. The pictures are nice and all that, but the interface isn't as polished as what as what you've seen from Grab Food as well. So I think these are some of the things that Asia should improve as well in terms of usability, because if a person who install it for the first time and they don't really find it pleasant to use, they'll probably drop off. So that's something they really need to improve on. And the next point would be the amount of choice and scale. Like for example, Asia, right? Right now, there isn't much drivers because it's understandable they're still new. And how Asia is doing it is this. They told us that instead of getting a lot of drivers on board, they're going to do it gradually. They don't have big pockets like other dominant players. So how they're going to do is right now they have 5,000 drivers who are fully vaccinated. They're going to release the number of drivers into the system based on demand. So I'm not sure how reactive that is, but that sounds like it's going to be quite slow. So if you start now, I think if you need a ride desperately, I got a feeling that Asia Ride might not be able to fulfill that job as quickly as, say, a Grab driver, because there's just simply more drivers on Grab versus Asia Ride. So I think that would be a key difference for users as well, because if Asia doesn't scale up, right, the user's going to go to the path of the least resistance. Like, okay, if it takes me 20 minutes or 30 minutes to get a ride on Asia Ride, I might as well take the next option that is like take half the time. So that's something that we have to wait and see.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, like, that's how like a monopoly does not work, right? So you have choices, right? So if I don't like Grab, I can go to AirAsia Ride. If I don't like AirAsia Ride, I can go to Grab. And yeah, in this age of digital stuff, user experience is really important. And I'm very similar with you, right? So I like to collect points on Grab because the points are worth a lot of things. You can get free meals, free rides, free a lot of things, right? So that's very useful. I don't see AirAsia being able to do that right now, because it's just not as integrated and not as varied as Grab. But it's good that there is an option. And I wanted to point out also that ride hailing is it was a dominant segment of Grab's business model and Uber's business model back then. I think it has kind of like shrink to become something of a it's some supplementary rather than the main driver of the business. So if you look at Grab right now, I think food delivery and deliveries in general is a major contributor to the Grab's earning. And the other one is, of course, I think Grab is also looking into financing in the future, right? So you have what is it called, Grab Pay Later or something?
Grab Pay, and also Grab Pay Later. So they're becoming more like a digital bank.
Yeah, so this is something not new. I mean, if you go to China, there's tons of applications that allow that, right? And I think Grab is looking towards that future. And I think AirAsia has sights on that as well. I think Tony Fernandez and the people that he hires are not are smart people, and I think they know this. And he has Big Pay as a platform to do that as well. In fact, Big Pay is much better because it is a physical card compared to an application like Grab. It's just a matter of him bringing it all together and moving as fast as he can. To a certain degree, it is a factor of how deep your pockets are, but it is also a factor of managing the team and making sure that they're able to move forward quickly and leapfrog the competitors. So it's going to be like an interesting period for ride hailing, delivery riders, food riders, and stuff like that in Malaysia. And if whatever that we presented here is an indication, it's only going to be more varied and more diverse moving forward, because there's tons of potential. It's just unfortunate that our market is really small. Coming back to food, I see, like, okay, so as a ride hailing, is Grab a monopoly? Yeah, we can say that it's not. They don't control riders and whatever, right? And drivers can jump onto AirAsia Ride, and AirAsia Ride is kind of like now playing the commission game, giving them more commission compared to Grab, blah blah blah. But the situation is kind of different when it comes to food, right? So there were reports, I think we covered it, of Grab preferring certain restaurants over other restaurants. They get more prominence in the Grab food app over other restaurants. Is that a monopoly, or is that like controlling the market to a certain degree?
That one I'm on the fence a bit. So it's not just Grab, but also Food Panda as well. So I think there's a recent report that says that restaurants are not making money. In fact, they said that they complain that they're making losses when they get on board to these platforms, because a part of giving away a huge cut of their revenue, they need to spend extra costs just for marketing purposes to get the word out. So I think I understand what Grab and Foodpanda is doing. Is sort of like like how Google runs their Google ads or Facebook ads. Like, okay, you can you can use it for free, but you want to boost your promotions, you want to promote your visibility, you need to add more, you need to spend a bit more. So I think that communication might not be communicated clearly. So I guess that's the reason why there are some social media reports. I think if you've seen some screenshots saying that, I make this much money, but end of the month only make like a few bucks because of the extra costs. So I think that was not made clear. And I think that is, whether you're going to call it a monopoly or not, I don't think so. I think it's more on it's competition lah. So let's say, for example, if a person opens an app, right, there's only so many things that a user can see. So people, let's say a restaurant who wants to promote their business, they have the option to pay more to have the extra prominence. That's my take on it. But of course, another flip side of it is that there's an accusation that these platforms, because they're so dominant, they're getting a huge cut of it. I think there was this story from it was reported on Malay Mail that some restaurant owners are complaining that some of these platforms collect as much as 30% cut, and that's more than how much they earn from their food delivery. So in a way, they're making a loss or hardly break even. But they have no choice during the pandemic, because people can dine in, and so far the easiest way is to ride on these platforms. Of course, some people might argue that, you're not forced to use Grab or Foodpanda. You can start your own delivery service yourself. You can have a WhatsApp number. You can get your own rider to deliver food for you. But is it, it's a free market. So if based on that argument, yeah, it's true that, they can choose not to use the platforms.
It could be giving birth to like an oligopoly, right? So Foodpanda and Grab, they can talk to each other and say, okay, let's agree to control the commission, and tell people like, okay, the minimum commission both of us is going to provide is X amount, because you don't want to race to the bottom, right? So it's like, let's say if I'm Foodpanda and I want to get more riders on my platform, I will tell them, okay guys, we offer more commission to you, we take less cut from the restaurants. Why not you jump on our platform? And I think to a certain degree that's what Foodpanda has been doing. And I think Grab is the worst in terms of taking commissions and stuff like that. And yeah, it's a bit too much, because Grab is earning on both sides of the segment, right? So they're earning from the restaurants, they're earning from the riders in terms of commission, and they're earning from us for paying for the delivery. Should something be done? Should there be legislation? Should there be law? Definitely. I think Malaysia, compared to other countries in Asia, especially in Singapore and Indonesia, Vietnam, we are really behind when it comes to adopting new technologies and creating new rules and regulations for these new technologies and new applications. Let's not even talk about Grab and Foodpanda. For example, our platform, like Sorry Chincha, we are a legit media platform, and it's difficult to get acknowledgement or accreditation, because when we want to go and register with a government body to say that, hey, we are like a legit platform, we write news and stuff like that, it's like, because you're digital, it's difficult, because you need to do all these things. And when we look at the requirements, it's like, look, this is not relevant to a digital platform. This is not relevant to a digital media. You have to not look at us like a
newspaper.
like something. like a newspaper or like a TV outlet, right? And yeah, we're kind of like in a stalemate with regards to that. We've appealed to a number of people. We've made some complaints, but we're still not there. And it's the same thing with ride hailing. It's the same thing with electric vehicles. It's the same thing with applications in general in Malaysia. So I guess the takeaway from me with this is, bottom line, no, these companies are not a monopoly. Is there potential? Definitely. Why? Because Malaysia is not catching up when it comes to rules, regulations, and legislations. And for me, the biggest takeaway here is that we are the third least populous nation in the region, and we need to innovate. We need to, find our strength in other things, not just in terms of volume of population, right? Because if we do, then we can't compete with the likes of Indonesia and Vietnam and Thailand. And to a certain degree, it's become frustrating because we know to compete, we need to be smarter. We need to be an intelligent digital nation. But we're not putting the effort. Maybe effort is wrong, but we're not putting in the results to show that we are. We're not attractive to investors. We lost the opportunity to become a hub for submarine cables 3 times this year just because our rules and regulations are terrible. Grab, which is Grab, which is undeniably a Malaysian company, has moved out to Singapore simply because it's a more attractive country to operate in because of the tax exemption and environment and tax exemption. What is lacking in Malaysia? Nothing. I mean, we are not almost on par. We are similar to Singapore in terms of people being able to speak English. We are similar to Singapore in terms of infrastructure. We are similar to Singapore in terms of internet and capabilities. It's just our rules and regulations and our politicians are not making the country attractive. In fact, we are more attractive to Singapore because we are bigger. We have nicer places to go. It's just fortunate.
We have more talents.
We have more people. It's just fortunate that Singapore is right next to us. So people who are living in Singapore, working in Singapore, the foreigners who are investing in Singapore, they work there and then they go holiday in Malaysia. They go to our islands because it's cheaper, it's nicer, it's bigger, people are more friendlier, and obviously the food is better.
No doubt.
So I think for me, okay, the takeaway here is that Grab is not a monopoly. They can be, and our government can stop them. And they need to do something to not only stop people from being able to monopoly, but they need to start making rules and regulations that help make Malaysia an attractive digital hub for investors to come in, so that more people are motivated to create apps like Grab, right? And this was mentioned in the budget or what some program. I forgot what's it called, Alex, the one that you covered.
The My Digital, is it?
Yeah, right. So they wanted 5,000 SMEs by year end or something like that.
I can't remember, some crazy goal, but I don't see any substance to back it up. Like, okay, you want this number of like unicorns, whatever, but how do we get there? So that's still up in the air. And like, for example, even a lot of goals like the submarine cable. So Malaysia aims to have the most submarine cable landings by 2025. How do we get there? We already miss opportunities from so many submarine networks. So I don't see any proper roadmap towards that.
And then, after we change the government, we don't know whether My Digital exists or not anymore. So that's for me the worry. I'm not worried whether Grab is a monopoly today or tomorrow or 10 years down the line. I'm worried that 10 years down the line, we will fall behind Indonesia, we will fall behind Thailand and Vietnam in terms of going into the digital space. And for me, that is the more legit concern. Alright, so that is the cue for me to remind you that we are available on podcasts. So if you want to listen to us instead of watching the video, you can do that and just search for Let's Talk About Sorry Chin Chow on any and all of your podcast platforms, and we're there. If you're listening to us on podcast, please do give us a 5-star rating, because that helps more listeners view our that helps more listeners listen to our show. If you're watching us on YouTube, thanks for watching. Please do give us a thumbs up if you like the show. Do subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And as always, comments, suggestions, feedback. That is critical to us, and we love reading your comments. So let us know what you think. Is Grab a monopoly? Do you think we are attractive enough for investors to come in? Let us know. We are all ears. Okay, and yeah, that's pretty much it. This is me, Amin.
And this Alex.
Catch you guys later. Bye.
Bye.